All right. But for those that are here, we'll start in 30 seconds. It will just be good for you to have the Google Doc open that says Battles Day 1 of the Civil War. All right, so at this point, it looks like we have at least most of the people here. So let's kind of get started. First and foremost, I want to say today is really a 2-day lesson, meaning there are technically 9 battles that you need to do, but we're just going to cut it in half. We're just going to do the first 4 today, and then next time I see you, you'll do the next 4 or 5. And the way it works is there is a book that if you were with me, you would get. It's small. It's not too bad. It's actually not an 8th grade reading level. It's a little bit less, so it shouldn't be too hard, though there are some, kind of complicated things to go over. So before we go into the actual reading, which I don't know how well you can see my screen here, but you see the, Union soldiers and the Confederate soldiers, fighting. We're looking at the battles of the Civil War. What we want to do is we're going to get an overview and see how a lot of the battles went. And then later on next week, we'll really dive in and look at some of the more important details. But I think just getting a general sense of how the battles went, the names of some of the battles, I think can go a long way. So we'll kind of get a sense of that, okay? So part of this is working on some ELA skills, okay? Part of this has to do with working on our social studies, understanding battle skills. So let's go through them. All right, so if you are looking at, not that is not correct. If you're looking at this, you're going to see the names of 4 battles. So the names of the battles are located on the left, and that's going to be able to help you figure out which picture you're going to click on. So we're going to click on the Battle of Fort Sumter first. Now you see I labeled it in order, so it shouldn't be too difficult. You're going to click on this to kind of read and help you, and you should be able to get what it looks like on your screen here, like you're reading a book. So we'll treat it like an ebook, I guess you would call it. What do you mean, Hamza? What? Why? What do you mean? Something confusing?
I mean, like, you said that he already did it during class. I'm like, yo, we didn't even learn this yet.
Alejandro, overachiever, I guess. Yeah, but no, you should really just stick to ELA when you're in ELA. Don't try and get too far ahead because there's things that I'm going to explain. But if you just took a look at it, it's not a big deal, of course. All right, So let's take a look at the Battle of Fort Sumter. So what we need to figure out are 4 minor details and then the significance or importance of the battle. Now, I'll talk about both ways how to do it, but I want to say this. Everything on the left box, or this middle box, I guess you'd say, can be found in the reading. You don't need to do anything else but read it, and you should be able to get the particular information, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the first battle to you, okay? I'm going to show you how my mind kind of works. We're going to do a read aloud together, and then we are going to basically fill in this box together to start, all right? So if you have questions, please let me know, but let's go through the battles of Fort Sumter, all right? So first thing is reading everything on the page is important. Looking at the pictures is important, okay? So we obviously have here, ladies and gentlemen, we have something on fire, something exploding, and we have a real photo of Fort Sumter, what it would have looked like. So let's take a look at it, all right? So Fort Sumter sat on an island off the coast of South Carolina. By 1861, South Carolina had left the Union. So in my mind, I know if South Carolina left the Union, then they must be a Confederate state. Okay, right? Because if they left the Union, they must be a Confederate state. So we know it's a Confederate state. All right? So, since it's a Confederate state, in spite of this, Union soldiers stayed at the fort. The Confederates did not like this at all. So even though the South Carolina was a Confederate state, a Southern state, the Union had their soldiers in a Confederate state and they stayed at this fort. When the soldiers at the fort ran low on food, President Abraham Lincoln sent a supply boat to his men. He told South Carolina's governor that the boat would not have any guns or soldiers. However, the Confederates refused to allow this or any boats near the fort. In fact, they demanded that the fort surrender. All right, so surrender is a term. If you don't know if it's in bold, you could just look up on Google, but surrender means that they should give up. So the Confederates were unhappy because Abraham Lincoln was basically sending supplies and food to his soldiers that were located in a Confederate state. And Abraham Lincoln, again, is that Union president. So they weren't too happy about this. So Robert Anderson, which is a Union general commander, the commander at the fort said, "We will not surrender." He and his 68 men braced for an attack. On April 12th, 1861, Confederate General P.J.T. Beauregard, ordered his troops to fire cannons at the fort. Fort Sumter went up in flames and Anderson surrendered after 2 days. This was the true beginning of the Civil War. Okay. So it's good to read the stuff on the left and the right too, the stuff in the yellow here. So a good show. Thousands of Southerners saw the Battle of Fort Sumter. They loaded their carriages up with food and friends. Then they watched as the bombing took place near Charleston. There was also no casualties. Despite heavy firing, not one man died during the attack on Fort Sumter. Okay? So, how do we do this particular assignment? So what we need to first look at is we need to find the date. Could anyone in the chat, based on the reading, tell me the date of this battle? Is there a date here? What is the answer?
1861.
Very good. April 12th, 1861. So we're just not going to do anything crazy. We're just going to write the date, April 12th, 1861. So the Battle of Fort Sumter is a one-day battle. What you'll notice is some battles take months. So sometimes they'll just say summer of 1862. Some days, give me 1 second, guys. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. So April 12th, 1861 is the date. This is just a one-day battle. Now we need to find, ladies and gentlemen, where was the battle fought? What was the name of the state? What was the name of the city? What was the name of it? Okay, we got an island off the coast of South Carolina. Excellent, we have that right here. So we could say South Carolina. Okay, excellent. Now we need to figure out, this is a little bit of a harder part. This is probably the second hardest thing you have to do in this particular assignment. You need to figure out who won. Now, it very rarely is going to outright say the Union won or the Confederates won. But what it will say are certain things like a certain group retreated, or many people passed away and died from one side, or maybe they left up land. Okay, the way you know how someone won a battle is they are going to basically determine who won the battlefield, who's still standing, or if a group leaves. Okay, so what I'm going to do is read this last part again. Confederate General P.J.T. Beauregard ordered his troops to fire cannons at the fort. So here's a picture of the fort. You see that it's in flames. The Union owned this fort. So if their fort goes up in flames, okay, and Anderson, who was the commander of the Union fort, surrendered, who wins the battle? Right? If the Union commander If the Union commander surrenders and their particular place goes up in flames, then yes, correct. The South or the Confederacy is going to win the battle. Okay? The Confederates. Or I'll put in this bottom there, the South. Okay, this way it's nice and easy. I know some people are still probably getting confused. Wait, the Confederates are the North, the South. The Confederates of the South are the ones that there. The Union did have more people, Hamza, but that doesn't necessarily mean you win the war, right? If you and someone else, let's say, try and fight me, and there's 2 of you and 1 of me, I could still win the fight. Just because there's more of you doesn't mean you can beat me in a fight. So what you're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, is that sometimes numbers help, but doesn't necessarily mean you're always going to win. So the Confederates win the first battle. The next thing is we want to look at a fun fact. Now, I'm going to allow you to put anything on the sheet, anything from your reading that you thought was interesting. This is completely up to you. Just make sure you write one thing to get credit. I happen to like to look at the side stuff. Specifically, I think this here on the right. No casualties. Despite heavy firing, not 1 man died during the attack on Fort Sumter. Now, in a previous lesson, I had mentioned that the Civil War was the bloodiest war of all time. Yet on the first battle of the Civil War, not 1 person dies. I find that to be really interesting. Okay? So I'm going to put as a fun fact, not 1 soldier died during this battle. What's up, David?
Why? How was the first war taking place, and how?
So basically, like you have the entire war, which is the Civil War, and then it's like the battles are these smaller things. So like if you play on a sports team, okay, and you have a season, there's games within a season. So battles are within the entire war. Okay, so obviously your goal in sports is to win a championship, and the games are working to help you win a championship. In this case, this is a battle in terms of winning the entire Civil War. So it is just interesting, though, that not even 1 soldier died. The tactical approach was they wanted to get rid of the fort. And since they were able to set the fort on fire, the South would win the battle. Okay, so a couple things you could do for this right box, okay, because we're working remotely. What I suggest is whenever you get to this final box, you're going to read the last paragraph and you're going to try and get the most important detail or the most important main idea. This is way number 1. I'll tell you way number 2 in a second. So who can maybe write in the chat, I'll give you all a second, based on this last paragraph, what is the importance of this battle? What is the significance? Like years from now, you may not remember the date, and that's fine, of the battle. But why is this an important battle that we study in class? What is the major thing? Why is this battle important? So take a look at this paragraph, read it to yourself, and write in the chat what you think to be the most important detail from this reading. That Fort Sumter got burned in flames. That is pretty important, but that's not the most important thing.
What's the most important thing?
Well, we're going to give everyone a second to try and figure it out. Read that paragraph. Okay, I appreciate Alejandro trying, but there is an even more important thing that Mr. Panio remembers about Fort Sumter. Even if I don't remember all the details, I do remember this about Fort Sumter. Junior, I think the Civil War. No, that's not it. Great try. The South won. That is not the most important detail.
That it went up in flames.
What was it, Daniele?
That it went up in flames.
No, not that. Good try. That's probably the second most important detail. Surrendered after 2 days. Here's what I think is the most important. You ready? That this was the true beginning of the Civil War. If Fort Sumter never happens, ladies and gentlemen, we never get the start of the Civil War. But since the Confederates attacked the fort, this was the start. This was the moment that said, okay, we need to go to war now to fight against the Confederacy. So what I remember is this was the true beginning of the Civil War. All right, so we're going to fill that in our box there. Okay? So, we have 3 more battles we need to do. Oh, that's so nice. Hamza, nicely done. So this is what we have to do for the rest of the period. You have 3 more battles consisting with 3 more readings. So you'll notice the next one is here, the Battle of Bull Run. You're doing the same thing. And listen, I don't need you to read the entire thing. If you could pick up the date, if you could look at it and see what the date is or where it was fought, that's great. If you're having trouble, okay, and because I know this is a challenging activity, if you're having trouble with this right box, you can look up what was the significance of the Battle of Bull Run, right? And if you want to read some of the things here, this is not going to be written in an 8th grade level, but you can use this to kind of help you if you're really stuck. But I really think you should do your best to try and answer the questions and use the reading to best help you, because if you were in class, you would not be able to use the internet to help you. All right? So what I'm going to do is you have 20 minutes left. I'm going to mute myself. I'm thinking many of you will not finish, and that's okay. You have all of today, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to finish. This is technically due Monday night for you. Okay, even though I think it says, well, I'll change it. This is technically due Monday night, so you have plenty of time to work on this. If you really work hard, there's no reason why you can't finish this today, okay? But you're looking at the first 4 battles of the Civil War. Tuesday, when I see you guys, whether that's in class or remote, you'll be doing the next 5, the last 5 of the Civil War, okay? All right, I'll be muting myself. If you have any questions, just write in the chat. And you have 20 minutes to work on it.